I forgot where my camera was. Happy Halloween. Halloween's kind of a wild time of year because it's the one time where really conservative Christians agree on something with really nutjob leftist liberals. And the one thing that they agree on is that Christians shouldn't celebrate Halloween. Many Christians believe that you shouldn't celebrate Halloween because of its potentially demonic and pagan influences. And the liberal atheist TikTok barista leftists believe that you shouldn't celebrate it because Christians stole it from them or something like that. And as someone who grew up essentially not celebrating Halloween really at all, I want to give you reasons why that is, why I grew up with that upbringing. But on the other hand, I want to give you reasons for why Christians, I think, can and maybe even should celebrate Halloween in this video. Like I mentioned before, I think the reason that many Christians don't celebrate Halloween currently right now in the 21st century is because it is dark. And I'm not going to deny that in this video. If you go to a Halloween party or if you watch a Halloween movie or engage in some kind of societal Halloween thing, most of the time there's some kind of dark influence involved, whether it's the glorification of death or violence or maybe even something demonic. And like I said, I'm not going to deny that. I think the way that we celebrate Halloween in the 21st century in 2025 is problematic, and I want to talk about that too. But my goal in this video is to help you understand that the actual true historical origin of Halloween is far from pagan and far from anything remotely spiritually compromising. So the primary question that I'm going to unpack historically, at least, is Halloween pagan? No. Did you laugh at that? Now, because of its spooky nature, Halloween has been tied back to the ancient Celtic holiday of Samhain. And yes, that is how it's pronounced. I know it's spelled Samhain, but it's not pronounced that way for whatever reason. This holiday began on the night of October 31st and ended on November 1st. And any honest historian or person would not deny that this specific holiday was wacky, spiritual, spooky. It was nuts. Samhain was the beginning of the Celtic New Year, and it was believed that on this day, the line between the physical world and the spiritual world was blurred. Now, because the line between the physical and the spiritual was blurred here, it was believed that spirits from the spiritual world would enter into the physical world, and among these spirits were evil spirits. And what the people would do is they would wear animal skins to ward off these evil spirits. In terms of other kind of wacky things that went on during this time, there was blood sacrifices and bonfires, like big bonfires that historians, at least according to the research I did, don't actually know what they were for. They just know there was big bonfires and can't exactly put a finger on why. Now, if you're a Christian, at this point you're probably thinking, Tabor, you're not exactly making a good argument for your case here. If Halloween really has anything to do with what Samhain had to do with, I don't want any part of it. And as a Christian, if that was true, then I would applaud you for that, because Scripture is very clear that as a covenant community, we should have nothing to do with demonic practices. These verses explain why. But here's the thing. While Samhain definitely included some kind of spiritual, spooky things, that actually wasn't the core idea of this holiday. That wasn't the reason they gathered. This festival was really more about culture, tradition, celebration, and honoring their leaders than it was anything else. And yes, I'm not denying that the spiritual parts were there, but it wasn't really about that. So that's why by the 8th century, after Catholic influence had kind of invaded Britain and Ireland, Samhain was still being celebrated, but without any of the spiritual, wacky, weird stuff. And at this point, historically speaking, this was essentially just a harvest festival. And there was really nothing negative about it, at least from a spiritual perspective. Now, around this time, Pope Gregory III moved the Feast of Martyrs from earlier in the year to November 1st. And this could have been for a lot of different reasons, but the Catholic liturgical calendar didn't really carry anything in the month of November, so it honestly could have just been because there was nothing really happening in November, and the Pope at the time wanted something to be happening during that month. Now, as I stated before, the holiday of Samhain began on October 31st and extended to November 1st. So now at this point, historically speaking, Samhain, this holiday practiced by pagans, and the Feast of Martyrs, celebrated by Christians, were on the same day. And so to make an extremely long story short, if we fast forward all the way to the 13th century, we don't just have the Feast of Martyrs, but now we have a 3-day event called Hallowtide, recognized by the Catholic Church. This began with All Hallows Eve on October 31st, All Saints' Day on November 1st, formerly known as the Feast of Martyrs, and All Souls' Day on November 2nd. This 3-day event was a reminder for the Church to remember the dead. And you're kidding. You're actually freaking kidding right now. Are you joking? Are you joking? I'm so angry right now. It's the spirit of Halloween. Well, I went from lighting that looked pretty good to lighting that looks bad. Okay, so anyway, as I was saying, in this 3-day event, this was a reminder for the Church to remember fallen saints, and specifically martyrs who had died for the faith. And as I listed off those days, I hope you recognize some similarities in the first day, October 31st, All Hallows Eve. The name Halloween derives from All Hallows Eve. It was a tradition that was brought over by the early settlers of America. But to make a long story short, like I said, we get the name Halloween from All Hallows Eve. So to summarize what I just said here, the only historical correlation between Samhain, the demonic pagan holiday, and Halloween, the holiday where little kids dress up as their favorite cartoon character or favorite superhero and go from door to door knocking and asking for candy, is the date. That's it. In terms of the rest of Halloween, like the scary stuff and the dressing up and the going from door to door, none of that is rooted in pagan ritual, spiritual stuff. It's actually much more closely related to the rise of scary movies in Hollywood and marketing and business, and it's all kind of complicated. If you want to see the historical reasoning for why we have Halloween today, and why it's not pagan, check out the videos in my description. That should give you an overview of the historical Halloween and where it comes from. Now, as a Christian, you may be saying, okay, fine, maybe history doesn't prove that paganism and Halloween are necessarily even related. But in 2025, people are still going to celebrate the things that pagans did thousands of years ago, even if our holiday and their holiday is completely unrelated historically. And to that, I will just say, be a Christian. As Christians, since the very beginning, we have lived in community with the pagans. That's kind of our thing. If this holiday, historically speaking anyways, is rooted in prayer and remembrance, then take this holiday to pray and remember. Just because people have abused this holiday doesn't mean you as a Christian have to as well. So let me just begin to land the plane here. I think that Christians have a great opportunity to do Halloween a different way. This is a great opportunity to do the things that as a culture we do, like watch Halloween movies, eat junk food, go trick-or-treating, but then maybe take some of your Halloween to chat with your family about, as weird as it sounds, death. We don't really have a holiday where we talk about the spiritual implications of life after death. You can make an argument that we have Easter for that, but I think Easter is more important for another reason. Now, as Christians, we know that death is just an uncomfortable doorway to experiencing everlasting life with our Creator. And so for those of us who are parents, this is a great opportunity to chat with our kids about what death means as a Christian. It could also be a great opportunity to chat about loved ones that have passed away and, if they're Christian, where they are now. This day could also be a great reminder to pray for those who may be on their deathbed. As dark as that sounds, I think it's just a good reminder that we need to be praying for healing or for the ministering of the gospel to those who need it most. And for the church history nerds out there and theology nerds out there, this could be a great opportunity to educate your family and your kids on the saints and the martyrs of the faith. And most importantly out of all of this, this holiday can be used as an opportunity to talk about, like I mentioned before, death. But most importantly, the discussion of death can be a great way to segue into the crucifixion narrative and why the crucifixion narrative is so important to the most important part of the whole Bible, the resurrection story. So I guess my goal for this video is for you as a Christian to not be afraid of Halloween. You shouldn't be afraid to talk about death. You shouldn't be afraid to talk about where your beloved family members who have passed, who were saints, are now, and what it means to be a Christian in our relationship with death. I think as Christians, we're so afraid to talk about the hard things, but Halloween can actually be a really great opportunity to talk about one of the most difficult things that we don't like talking about. Now, Christians have hope beyond the grave, beyond our deathbed. And the reason that is because of Jesus and what he did for us in his crucifixion, his death, and his resurrection. And for the Christians watching, I want you to be confident that our version of Jesus is accurate and reliable. Pretty much every major religion says something about Jesus, but none of them really agree with the Bible. And so for that reason, I made a video recently about why Christians should believe in the biblical Jesus, the historically reliable Jesus, and specifically why Islam is completely wrong about him. So if you're interested in that video, check it out somewhere on the screen. And if you want to see what YouTube is recommending specifically for your interests on my YouTube channel, check out the other link also somewhere on the screen. Thanks again so much for watching. If you enjoyed my content, please leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, and be sure to subscribe. We'll see you next time.